My name's Wayne DeFrancesco, and I'm out here at Woodmont Country Club, and I'm going to give myself a quick golf lesson using the V1 software. So I'll just hit a shot here, the 7-iron. Alright, so what we have here is both views of my golf swing, and I'm going to show you how I analyze it. I'm going to draw a few lines. I'll start with the down the line view. Note that I'll have the camera, which is fixed in this case in the room, is directly behind my hands and pretty much just above hand height. Maybe a little lower than you would hold one, but that's the way the room was built. So, a couple more lines. Now all these lines are defining my initial position, and then when I move I can see where I'm going and what I'm doing with my swing. From the front view, I'm going to mark the outside edges of my hips, top of my head, and the sides of my head. From the front view, we're concerned, well, we're always concerned with everything, but we're looking more at lateral movement and the approach angle of the club. So when I draw these lines, it's a neat thing in the V1 where it'll give you an angle. So for example, my shaft right now is at 53 degrees. Now I'm going to start the swing. I'd like to see my club go back on the shaft plane, and I'd love to see my hands stay in that circle. Let's see what I do here. So, slightly down and in movement, you can see the grip handle just go slightly under, and then the club head come up the plane, and while it's just fractionally under, that's really pretty good. Toe is essentially up, maybe not 100%, but almost. You can see that my right leg is retracting. It would appear that my right knee has gotten a little bit straight. So I'm looking at all this stuff. I would like to keep my right knee a little more bent, and I would also like to see perhaps, instead of my head almost bobbing slightly upward in this area, to come down a little bit in the backswing. When my left arm gets parallel, I'm going to draw a line from the shaft, and this shows me a couple of things. It shows me how much elevation I have from the shaft plane up to this secondary plane, which is, I've come up 7 degrees. If I extend this line, I should be able to see that my shaft is on it. It's just barely off of it, a little bit vertical. Now as I go up to the top, slightly more elevation, and what you see in every swing is a pattern of planes that float upward, and the base of the shaft plane is always just down here, just inside of the ball. If you're looking at the target line, you're talking about the plane of the sweet spot of the club. Now, again, I'm going to be critical. So my next swing, I would think of things to rectify or try to change up. My shaft is right on plane, wrist angle's good, arms are in pretty good shape. I don't particularly like that look there. Then in the forward swing, I'm looking to get my knees to even up, maybe a little quicker than that. That downward head movement is a hallmark of all good players, and since I'm a decent player, have a pretty good playing record, I would call myself, somewhere in that category. So there's that downward movement, and you can see that my hands do a really nice job of finding that circle in that shaft plane. Now, I've got a bad back, and one of the things that I constantly have to watch for is my head backing away from its original spot out over the ball. So for example, if I draw a line right there, this is where the bill of my cap touches that line, and I would like to stay up against that until after I hit the ball. I'm good now, and I'm good till about left arm parallel, and then when I go to hit the ball, my right leg will come up under me and I'll pull back a little bit. Now, the club, however, has patterned into the ball quite nicely. It just doesn't really have a chance to go all the way around to the left because my right leg is shooting up a little bit to the right. So this has a lot to do with my back. And when I finish up, I'm pretty close to being back in the box, in this hip box here, which is another thing that you see in really good ball strikers. They finish back in that box there. But all in all, not too bad. Now from the front, I'm going to watch this. I'd like to keep my head mostly in the box. I would expect it to jog a little to the right. My hips should stay right in there. And that's pretty much what I see. Just an inch or so of movement here to the right. The hips have swiveled in the box. You'll note that my feet are pointed a little bit outward. I've switched from straight ahead with the right foot to free up my right hip action and to limit the grinding on my right hip. So pretty good there. My takeaway is average width. My hands are past my leg. The club cocks to about 90 degrees when the left arm is parallel. And in transition, you can see that I've pushed over and I've reached that left point about when the left arm is pretty close to 45. And then I'll finish up, hopefully right up against it when I push forward. I do, so I like that. And one thing I always shoot for is after I hit the ball here, I would like to sustain the club on my left arm a little bit longer than that. You can see it just tends to break down a little bit. And there's just a little backup of the head, but overall, a pretty good swing. So what would I choose to work on here if I go and hit a few balls? I'm going to try to keep this knee flexed in the right side here. Maybe get my posture a little bit more athletically over the ball and try to get my head to come down just a hair, like you might see in some of the better players, like that. Like there's Tiger, and here's Hogan. And you can see how the right leg stays bent and the right hip goes backwards right here. Anyway, that's a quick view of how I give a lesson and how I work on my own swing. I hope you enjoyed that.